Can we go back to horrific music, please? No, no. No, go back to the horrific... Go back to the horrific... Where's... Guys. Where's... No. I want my bumping murder music. Father. The ones lying over there. Uncle Kraus, Uncle Rudolph, Aunt Kyrie. Oh, and George is gonna realize Shannon's there. And Aunt Rosa, Goda-san. Just those 5, right? No. There are 6 people. There's one more person over here. The body Hideyoshi was looking down on now happened to be hidden among the shadows in that mountain of range of objects. In a blind spot to George, who stood by the entrance. So George couldn't tell whose body it was. Oh, fuck. So, George cursed himself. He cursed the fact that his worst guesses always turned out to be right. So, the one lying at your feet is Shannon, isn't it? Yes. It's Shannon-chan. George fell completely silent. He shook slightly, his lower lip trembling. He would have wanted to run away to his beloved's body, screaming and crying. However, before rashly rushing forward, he worked to keep his composure and asked his father, "Is Shannon the same as Uncle Kraus and the others?" Hideyoshi deeply understood the meaning of those words, so he couldn't give George an immediate answer. Or rather, he felt that silence was the only sincere and loving response he could give George right now. When George asked if Shannon was the same, he meant to ask whether her corpse was in the same condition as the others or not. Since Hideyoshi hadn't denied it, it meant her corpse was in the same brutal state. "Can I look at Shannon?" "No, you can't." "Why not? After all, I won't be able to see Shannon's face again, right? So, why won't you let me see what her face looked like at the end?" "The last time you met Shannon-chan was yesterday, right?" "Yes." "I see. When you left her, what kind of face was she showing you?" "It was a wonderful smile." After he'd handed her the ring, she hesitated, even though she must have already made up her mind. Then she looked bashful, and ran away because she was embarrassed to let him see her face looking like that. That's the expression that she was revived on in George's mind. "I see. But I'm sure Shannon-chan would want to leave you with that smile in your memory." Right. Hideyoshi looked down upon Shannon's body lying at his feet. Just like the other bodies, it was in such a horrible state that'd make anyone want to cover their eyes. Her head had been smashed in from the side, and no more than half of her expression remained. If the remaining blood-soaked half of her expression had been wiped clean, would that graceful smile of hers have peeked out? But only half of it. Without thinking, Hideyoshi slapped his hands over his eyes. How brutal. If her face was going to be crushed anyway, then, if only all of it had been crushed, he might have been able to temporarily distract George from his pain by making the pathetic suggestion that it was someone else wearing Shannon's clothes. But half of her face had been left untouched. It caused the body so much humiliation, while still proving beyond doubt that the body was Shannon's and no one else's. How inhuman. How brutish. And there, trying his best to burn the image of the remaining half of Shannon's expression into his eyes, as she lay at Hideyoshi's feet, was Kanon. Kanon was not crying. Tears had risen to his eyes, but they did not drip down. That didn't mean he wasn't feeling as much sadness as everyone else. Losing Shannon, who had lived with him in the same orphanage, whom he had loved as his sister, must have been just the same as losing a blood relative. "George, I'm sure Shannon-chan is saying thank you. She must be glad you didn't end up seeing her in such a pitiful state. I'm sure she's thanking you for holding strong and showing restraint." "I understand. I understand, Father. I understand." George excuse me. George leaned against... Oh my god. Excuse me. George leaned against the outside wall of the storehouse, crunching down limply. Crunching. Father, I have a request. What is it? I want you to look for me. Is there a ring on Shannon's finger? A ring? Let me see. Hideyoshi crouched down. As he did, Kanan silently pointed to one of Shannon's hands. Yeah, there is. It's a diamond ring. With a valuable diamond. Must have been pretty expensive. And... which hand? And which finger is it on? The ring finger. On her left hand. I see. So Shannon-chan was engaged. George, don't tell me you... Ava! That doesn't matter now. A man made a lifelong promise to Shannon-chan. A man promised her happiness for life. Who that man was isn't the issue here. Being told by that man is a woman's dream, isn't it? I don't know when she received this ring. I also don't know who gave it to her. However, even so, Shannon-chan took this ring. Then, she accepted it and put it on her left ring finger. I'm sure the man who gave it to her was also happy. To most people there, Hideyoshi was simply disturbed by this extraordinary situation and was blurting out nonsense. However, someone who knew of George and Shannon's true relationship would understand the full meaning of those words. I see. Thank you, Father. George stood up. The traces of tears still streaked his face, but his expression had returned to its usual calm one. Let's go. Badler-kun, Jessica-chan. If we stay here any longer, we'll get in the way of the adults. You're right. Jessica sniffled once, showing her face to her mother, who'd been holding her the whole time, to let her know she was okay now. When she faced George again, she once again had on her usual expression, although she still couldn't smile. Badler, hang in there. Badler kept on crouching in front of his parents' bodies. I'm sorry. Crying like hell calmed me down. You bastard, Dad. I bet you're laughing at me. And after all that shit I talked about you, here I am crying like a baby just 'cause you died. Well, so what? I guess I just got the gene that makes you cry when your parents kick the bucket. Badler's face was still bright red from the tears, but he had at least recovered enough to fake a smile, if only a bitter one. Kanon, you mustn't remain here any longer either. Take the children and return to the mansion. Natsu had been standing under the rain this whole time, unable to take a step into the storehouse. Maybe she had her own way of grieving, different from Badler's. Realizing that she had to take on a role of responsibility now that her husband was dead, she gave Kanon those orders. Yes, madam. Kanon rose silently and turned to face me. His face was pure white, almost as though his own heart had died along with Shannon, and there was no life in his expression. On an ordinary day, if he had been told to guide the children through the beautiful rose garden, Kanon might have led the way. But now, there was no distinction between Kanon and the children. They were now just kids of about the same age, suffering the pain of losing those close to them. After making sure the children were leaving, Natsu started giving orders to Genji. Genji, contact the police immediately. They probably won't be able to come until the typhoon passes, but they should be able to tell us what to do next. Understood. There's an emergency radio, so we'll use that to contact them. When sure that Natsu remembered. That's right, the phones were out today, weren't they? However, they also had a radio, since they couldn't necessarily rely on phones all the time while living on an isolated island. At any rate, they should start by contacting the police and receiving their instructions. Everything else could wait. Dr. Nanjo, is there anything more you can do here?
Unfortunately, there's nothing I can do.
Understood. Genji, could you at least cover their faces with something? Exposing them like this is humiliating to them as well. Yes, ma'am. Genji picked up several dried-up towels from inside the storehouse, when Ava stopped him with a shrill voice. Wait a second. Stop. This is the scene of the crime, isn't it? Then we mustn't disturb it. We all panicked and walked in here with our shoes on, but even that will surely get in the way of the police's investigation, right? Nazi glared at Ava, offended. Objectively speaking, Ava was right. Even so, she glared at Ava, though accusing her of refusing to do those tragic corpses which had been humiliated even after death, the simple kindness of covering their faces. However, Ava had spoken both calmly and correctly. This horrible situation definitely wasn't an accident. It was a crime. Someone had killed them. It was a murder case. So they needed to be careful to avoid disturbing the site any further. They had to do what little they could to aid the police, preserving clues that might help catch the detestable culprit.
I agree with Ava-san. Until the police come, we should leave everything be.
And what do you say, madam? You're right. Very well. Close it up. And just in case, we should put a different lock on it. A different lock? Yes. When we came here, the shutter was locked. That means the culprit used the key to the shutter to lock it. Well, that makes sense. So does that mean the key that opens the shutter will have the culprit's fingerprints on it? I'm sure it'll be worth submitting to the police as evidence. But Kanon-kun usually has it, and he used it to unlock the shed just now. It'll probably have Kanon's fingerprints on it. Also, that key was handed to Genji-san just now, and he took it with his bare hands. It doesn't look like it'll be very useful as evidence. That was careless of me. My apologies. Genji-san, are there any other keys to the storehouse? No. Only this one. So the culprit walked out of the servant room with that key, and then was nice enough to return the key to where they found it? Hideyoshi's theory sounded plausible, but was actually very strange if you thought about it. Why would they go to all the trouble of returning a key they stole? Now, if you think about it even more deeply, there are some points that are even more bizarre. When a criminal hides a body, they usually try to delay the point at which it will be found, so they can use that time to escape. The 6 weren't necessarily killed here, but it was reasonable to assume that they were killed somewhere on this island, carried to the storehouse, and hidden to delay the discovery of the crime. And yet, the eerie magic circle scribbled on the storehouse shutter had eloquently indicated the location of the hidden corpses. Sure, it didn't explicitly mention the corpses, but 6 people had gone missing. In that situation, someone had made such an obvious piece of graffiti and even returned a key to the shutter. Almost as though they wanted the corpses here to be discovered. Anyway, we can't put all our faith in a lock that the culprit has opened once before. If we want to protect this place from the culprit's hand, I think we should put a new lock on it.
I think that is a good plan. I agree.
Genji fished around inside the storehouse and unsealed a brand new padlock that had been inside a small box. What should I do with the key? I will take it. I will take responsibility and hand it over to the police. Natsu took the key to the padlock from Genji's hand. After that, they all exited and lowered the shutter. And so the corpses were once again sealed behind that shutter, which was still covered with that creepy magic circle. Genji crouched down in front of the shutter to fasten the new padlock. Shutters often have a place in front where you can attach your own lock in addition to the main lock of the shutter. This is one of those types. In the midst of the roar of thunder and the pouring rain, the storehouse stood there, ominously. With its closed shutter still covered in a blood-like creepy substance, it swallowed up the bodies of the 6. To Natsu, putting the new lock on wasn't mainly to preserve the scene for the police. She might have felt like she wanted to shut that mouth for all eternity. To prevent that eerie beast from swallowing up any more victims. Oh, it's only just begun. Come on, let's go, everyone. Dr. Nanjo, thank you very much for your work. Genji, hurry and contact the police. I will do so as soon as I return. The adults left the storehouse. The ghastly magic circle drawn on the shutter kept the 6 bodies in its throat, looming eerily as the lightning occasionally lit it up. And the second twilight is like those that are close, you know? That's what it says, like, those that are close will be torn apart. And like Battler said, or it was either Battler or Jessica, they pointed out, it's like, that could mean either they get torn apart like their relationship does, or like physically we could get a much more vicious scene to wake up to. All that could be heard was the sound of the rain, the voice from the kids' TV program Maria was watching. Ah, fucking poor Maria. Now we gotta tell her mom's dead. Well, no one's gonna want to tell her, but eventually she's gonna ask, like, where's Mama? Motherfucker. That's gonna suck. And then engrossed Maria's cackling voice. In other words, what greeted them as they returned dumbfounded from that horrible, bizarre scene. The voice of Maria as she rolled around laughing at the TV. Those who returned to the room didn't know how to explain to Maria that her mother was dead, and were trapped by a suffocating silence. At first, Maria returned their stares with a dubious look. But when she realized they weren't trying to blame her for anything, she ignored them and again immersed herself in the TV program. The children wordlessly sat down heavily on the sofa. Their minds were probably blank from their state of shock. Everyone had already cried and mourned so much, now they just vaguely sat there, their faces seeming to have lost all emotion. Only Callan had returned to his usual calm expression. However, that probably didn't mean he'd be able to wipe out the shock. Nothing was reflected in his eyes as he stared into empty space. Hideyoshi kept on fidgeting, and every time he remembered that horrible scene, he started muttering about how he couldn't believe it, how it couldn't have been something from this world, how it must have been the work of demons. Every now and then his mutterings produced a question directed at Nanjo, but the latter kept repeating in a calm, doctor-like manner that nothing could be understood by only glancing at the scene, and that until the police arrived, they wouldn't learn anything. However, Nanjo only appeared calm next to Hideyoshi, who simply couldn't suppress his agitation and fear. In fact, Nanjo had also received a huge shock, and his face was deathly pale. Maybe that atmosphere was why she tried to rise to the challenge and take charge. Natsu appeared to be unchanged from her normal attitude, and she briskly gave directions. I will go see Father. Genji, quickly contact the police. Certainly. I wonder if you would allow me to start along, Natsuine-san. Since Kraus-Nisan is now gone, the task of aiding Father's been left to me. It would be improper for me to relax here while relying entirely on you. Natsu was struck speechless by Ava's aggressive move in a situation like this. She seemed to be claiming that with Kraus dead, the one to take responsibility shouldn't be his wife, but herself, the next highly ranked in the family. Or maybe she hadn't been at all happy when Natsu took command without a reference to her in such an extreme situation. However, even Ava's mind had been blank from shock until a moment ago. She only came to her senses after Natsu started giving orders. Just do as you like. Natsu started walking without saying a word more. Ava followed behind her. As they did, Kumasawa-san ran into the parlor. She usually wasn't the kind of person to run around, so under normal conditions most people would have taken her entrance as a sign that something was the matter. But because everyone was still stricken with shock, they hardly even noticed her. Madam. If you're looking for Natsuine-san, she went to see Father. She'll probably be back soon. What happened, Kumasawa-san? You see, in the dining hall, there was blood. Blood! The ears of everyone in the parlor twitched. Everyone thought the same thing. I hope I misheard that. Any container can only hold so much, and no one here would be capable of handling yet another tragedy. So they all thought it. I hope I misheard that. What happened in the dining hall? When I went into the dining hall to set up for breakfast. The first one to start running was George. His harsh footsteps jogged Hideyoshi and Nanjo to their senses, and they chased after him. Badler and the others followed. They flew into the dining hall one after another, but they didn't find any change that might have caused Kumasawa to go pale. For those who had viewed that gruesome scene in the storehouse, it was a bit of an anticlimax. However, Kumasawa, who had followed them, pointed it out. There really were some traces of blood remaining on the floor. Compared to that terrible scene, it wasn't very impressive. However, if you calmly thought about it, this definitely indicated the loss of a lot of blood. There's another puddle of blood right over here. What in the world?
It appears that a great deal of time has passed. It's probably safe to say that they were killed here last night.
It definitely looks that way. We were talking together in the dining hall until late into the night. After that, someone must have forced their way in. Dad, when did you and Mom slip out into the meeting and go to sleep? Huh? It was a little past midnight. So, we should probably assume it happened after that. Are you kidding me? Give me a break.
Milady, please stay strong.
After seeing the hell on earth in the storehouse, this is nothing. Really? Good for you. I feel like my head's gonna explode. This is the dining hall, right? Every day this is where I'd eat, complain about school, complain about homework, talk to my dad about my grades. That's what this place is to me.
Milady, it wouldn't be good to remain here any longer.
Let's return to the parlor. I agree. Uncle Hideyoshi, I think this room will be really important to the police. Don't you think it'd be bad if we trampled all over it? Ally proposed this in a slightly firm voice. Along with Kanan, he grabbed the pail and shaking Jessica's shoulders.
Everything is just as Battler-san has said. There is nothing more to be gained from remaining in this room.
Andra spoke while looking at everyone's pale faces. Even though that horrible scene in the storehouse felt like something not of this world, at least then we'd been able to leave, to cut ourselves off from that place and run away. Everyone had shared in that feeling. However, this dining hall was different. It was in the mansion, the main building on this estate. And as Jessica had said, it should have been one of the most calming places even inside the mansion. It was where all the relatives had eaten lunch and dinner yesterday. The shock of seeing this place smeared with blood reminded us of that horrible spectacle in the storehouse, and forced us to accept that we hadn't really been able to run away from the scene of the tragedy. I agree too. The culprit might have left traces in this room. Amateurs like us shouldn't stir the place up. Let's leave quickly. Quickly, quickly! Hideyoshi also understood the meaning of what Battler had said, pushed everyone to hurry out of the dining hall. The way we were then, looking at that blood any longer would have been too harsh. Nobody went against his words. Everyone raced each other out of the dining hall. It was almost as though the last person in the room would be trapped in there all alone. Once in the hallway, we lent a hand to Kumasawa, who was still trembling and leaning against the wall. We all headed back to the parlor together. Then Genji returned.
Oh, Genji-san. Were you able to contact the police?
As to that, I'm afraid I must apologize. I don't know if it was a failure of the radio or something else that caused it, but...
What the? So you couldn't contact the police? Both the phone and the radio failed?
My apologies. A boat will be arriving on Monday morning, and I believe we will be able to borrow their communications equipment.
Isn't there a boat on this island? Can't we just take a little trip out to Nijima Police Department?
Hideyoshi-san, that would be impossible this weather. At the very least, we can't do anything until the typhoon passes us by.
Kurosama's boat is being repaired and is not on the island. Therefore, we must wait for the boat coming on Monday.
How could this happen? 6 people are dead! The phones and radio aren't working, and there's no boat! So until the typhoon passes and the boat comes, in other words, until tomorrow morning, we're gonna be stuck here on an island, unable to contact the police, aren't we? Which means that, not just us, the criminal who killed everyone is also confined to this island.
That certainly follows. The culprit who killed everyone is still here on the island.
So the bastard who killed Dad and the others must still be hiding somewhere, unable to escape. Damn it. Damn it, damn it, damn it, damn it, damn it. I'll catch that bastard. No way I'll hand him over to the police. I'll slice him to bits myself. Ah!
Yeah, Maria had finally realized that something odd was happening in the parlor. Rather than noticing something odd, it was probably better to say she felt unhappy and neglected since everyone was getting so excited about something only she didn't know about.
Jessica, Oni-chan, did someone die?
The way she spoke was completely calm. That is fucking creepy, not gonna lie.
Hey, Jessica, is someone dead?
Just as though she was talking about someone who had appeared on television drama, as though it was someone else's problem. Jessica probably didn't like that. As though trying to say, can't you tell just by looking at me, overwhelmed with grief, she flared up at Maria.
They all died. Everyone. Everyone. My dad and Balor's parents, Goda-san, Shannon, and even your mother, too. Stop it, Jessica-chan. You aren't the only one who's sad.
Maria-san, this will come as a shock, but please listen. Your mother has died.
Mama died?
Yeah, someone killed her. I know it's sad, but stay strong.
How many people died?
Yeah, Maria's gonna they're gonna be like 6, and Maria's gonna be like, because Maria fucking knows. Maria's that's where Maria's mind is immediately going. After she got the letter from Beatrice, she's
6 people. 6 people. Damn it, damn it, damn it. How could anyone do something that cruel? There's a limit to how cruel you can be if you're human. Don't know who it is, but the culprit is a human. There's no way their blood is red.
And Maria's gonna be like, you're right, it's not human.
It's a witch. The culprit isn't human. It's just the
Chosen by the... Huh? Hey, Maria. Did you say something just now? Maria just said something. But since the words were so remotely separated from the flow and context of the conversation, I can understand them for a second. The blank chosen by the blank, right? The victim's chosen by the key. That's like part of the prophecy. What is it? The sacrifice is chosen by the key. Yeah. When I tried to ask her to repeat it again, I was shocked by the sudden sound of Aunt Nazi's loud voice coming from the entrance to the parlor. It looked like Aunt Nazi and Aunt Ava had returned from their trip to see grandfather. You can't contact them, even with the radio? If we can't use it at a time like this, why do we even have an emergency radio?
My apologies. It was supposed to have a maintenance inspection every year.
Wait, don't you have one of those boat signaling devices that makes a flashing light? Could you use that to contact the next island?
We do not have such equipment. My sincere apologies.
Just then Kumasawa arrived, pushing a serving cart loaded with breakfast. Since there was no way we would be able to eat in the dining hall, Hideyoshi had ordered her to take it to the parlor. Why are we eating breakfast here?
Natsu-san. I'll tell you later. More importantly, Ava, how is father?
Judging by the fact that he is not with you, it seems he will not leave his room, not even for a situation like this.
He wasn't there. The room was empty.
What the? Where could he have gone at a time like this?
Do you mean to say that the master has left his study? That is correct. I was surprised myself. I wonder when he left his room. Do any of you have an idea? Natsu looked at Genji and Kanon as she said this. Maybe she was trying to ask whether the servants who served directly under the one-winged eagle knew of a place he might go. However, it's probably the other way around. Their faces made it clear that those who know Kinzo best realized even more than the rest how impossible it was for him to leave his room. Even we have no idea.
As you all know, within that study the master had everything from a place to sleep to a bathroom. I couldn't imagine him leaving that room except for a significant reason.
In that case, what? Isn't it natural to assume that the one of those significant reasons came up?
We still cannot be certain that's the case. Anyway, he is a fickle person, so it's possible he went for a walk by himself, unaware of the current situation. If that is the case, we must act in all haste to tell him what has happened and ask for instructions. That's right. Although I don't want to think about it, it's possible something has happened to him, isn't it? I'd rather not even consider such a sinister possibility. No one had seen Kinzo since the discovery of those 6 terrible corpses. On top of that, the phones were broken and the radio wouldn't reach anyone. There was no way to contact the police. Apparently the typhoon would leave tomorrow and a boat would come. But until then, no one could rely on anyone outside the island, nor could they escape the island. The tragedy had hit everyone so abruptly that they lost all their composure. Everyone felt a heavy silence. Everyone was impatient. Even though they needed to do something, they couldn't think of anything. So some of them held their heads in their arms while others got irritated. Right now, no one could explain what was occurring on this island, Rokkenjima. God damn.